is the 31st century, and mankind is once again at war.
That's right, I bought Battletech, a game of armored combat, the new-ish starter set to the Battletech universe by Catalyst Game Labs. Battletech is a game of giant, stompy mech robots shooting lasers and missile launchers at each other. It's been around about as long as Warhammer, since the 80s, and it's got a giant map and oodles of lore that I don't understand, not to mention books and books and books. There's so much lore, how do you even start? Well, nowadays, the best way to start is here, through the Game of Armored Combat box. We're gonna crack it open, I'm gonna show you some of the stuff inside, and we're gonna build a lance. First off, this game came with a $20 voucher to their store, which is amazing. Love that. Everyone should do that. Second, it comes with a small little novella to really get you into the feel of the universe that I'll read at some point. A bunch of cards with things on them that I don't understand because rules are complicated. 2 dice in a tiny bag that you could use for other things. And then the real star of the show, aside from the rule books that I'm going to forget to show you, the miniatures. Single-piece plastic miniatures that, honestly, I kind of wish I could build out of, like, give me the legs and the torso and the arms so I can get a little posing in there. Either way, these models are great. We're going to take 4 of them today and build what Battletech calls a lance, which is like a squad, a kill team. The 4 robots on one side. I ended up looking up a balanced force online because rules are hard, and I came up with the Awesome, the Thunderbolt, the Wolverine, and the Locust. We're gonna take these 4 mechs, give them the slap chop treatment. They'll be done in like 2 days. It's gonna be a good time. So the first thing we have to do is give these guys a nice cleanup. They do come assembled, but they do not come prepped. So if you're real stickler for this sort of stuff, we're gonna get rid of any of the flashing on them. Some of the mold lines, we're just gonna scrape those off with a fresh, sharp hobby knife. This plastic is very different than like Games Workshop plastic, if you've ever worked with that. And the back of my hobby knife was not doing the work I wanted it to. It was honestly harder than I thought to clean these up, and as you'll see later, I get lazy, I give up. I don't really care about cleaning up models, but if I'm gonna make a tutorial or something, I feel like I should show you. Then I gave him a nice base using my baking soda basing method, which I'll put a link to like 100 other videos that I have that do that, and you leave them to dry overnight. Next, you have to consult your cat and make sure conditions outside are perfect for priming. Daisy says yes, so outside we go. We're gonna give these guys an all-over prime of a black spray paint, and then I'm gonna do a zenithal of gray. Now, if you've ever slap chopped before, or you've seen videos on it, they typically suggest doing a zenithal prime that's just spraying from the top down. I'm doing green, so I did a very, very heavy gray zenithal, mostly gray paint with a little bit of black showing underneath for shadows. And with our primer dry, it's time to paint. I'm going to use Malignant Green from the Army Painter, a paint I used in a previous video on some small orcs. We're going to use a couple other Army Painter speed paints to get the job done super fast. Battletech has weirdly drawn me into the Capellan Confederation. I kind of like their weird space communism and their rules regarding citizenship. I'm going to paint them in the style of these mechs that I found online. First things first, we got to do a white dry brush. Now I have a cheap makeup brush that I use only for white so that it doesn't get cross-contaminated. And we're gonna do a very heavy dry brush, honestly almost an overbrush on this entire mech. I want it to be like 80% of that off-white color. This is gonna make the green actually have real coverage and stick to the model. It's also gonna create super strong shadows. Next, we're gonna do a true white, that'd be White Scar from Citadel. You need to give it the shaking of its life so it doesn't separate, and then give a really, really soft dry brush just going down, hitting the most upward facing points of the mech. The whole idea is that if you don't like edge highlighting, and I like edge highlighting, but if you don't like that and you do this now, you can separate all of those geometric patterns that make up our mech very well. If you look at Battletech minis, they're honestly just made of a lot of squares and geometric shapes connected together. Then the slap chop part begins. I'm going to paint the entire mech with that Malignant Green. Now I'm going to paint the whole mech. I do not care about choosing and deciding what pieces are going to be green, because every other paint we use is either going to cover that green well, or it's going to be an opaque acrylic. This lets me have perfect uniform coverage on the model, letting the slap chop do the magic, and then I can make decisions later. The biggest thing too is this needs to sit for at least a half hour. Army Painter recommends a half hour. I was really busy, so I left it for like 2 to 3 days. Be careful of bubbles, you don't want those, but you won't see it later. Next, we're gonna take an off black color that's a dark blue gray from the Army Painter, and we're gonna block out all of our guns and weapons. Now, these are futuristic military tools. They're not gonna be metal. I didn't think metal would look good with the slap chop, and honestly, military weapons don't look metallic. They're kind of a plastic cover. Not that these are plastic, I don't know the lore well enough, but I painted all the weapons. I even did the under portions of the mech, and then a few sparing details just to break up the green. Now, other tutorials will tell you to paint the undercoat of the mech first. I don't really care. I really wanted to get the slap chop green on. The toughest part about this step is that you can't go back. So I had to decide what parts of this mech were gonna be gray and which parts were not. I'm not sure if I chose correctly, but that's half the fun of painting, isn't it? Now we're gonna do some detail color, some really sparse browns, really to just break up that green again and tie it back to our original paint scheme. I don't really feel like doing that weird camo pattern, so what I'm gonna do is just do this hardened leather on a few select blocks. So we're gonna do like 1 full knee pad and 1 half knee pad. Every model's just gonna have a block of leather brown. And to tie the whole team together, all of these weird like X panels, which are very common on Battletech minis, are also gonna be brown. Just again, break up that green. And it ties the whole squad together. Next, I try to get fancy with some white for a spot color, like a third tertiary color. And I tried to take some masking tape and mask off to do half circles. Now, white, if you don't know, is the world's worst color to paint with, even over light green. And I clearly don't know how masking tape works, so I just decided these circles are gonna be white. Maybe later I can put some details on them, but oh my god, there's hair in them, and oh, who knew white could be such a tough color to paint? Am I right, guys? Jeez. I did do these freehand white stripes that are going to get completely covered up later, but at the moment I was very, very happy with how straight they seemed from afar. I just like little details like that. It's going to really add some fun to the mechs. Now take a good look, because this is the last time these mechs are going to look clean. I know Battletech mechs are supposed to be clean and they're well maintained in between missions, but Slapchop is dirty. It's quick and dirty and messy, and I think everything matching is going to be great. I paint my Warhammer models very high contrast, but I want these mechs to look worn and beaten up and weathered. So the first thing I do is I give them a clear coat to make sure that speed paint does not reactivate. It's not a thing that's happened often to me, but it's happened to everybody at some point. So after waiting overnight for that clear coat to dry, I took a black wash and just heavily coated them in a black wash. This is going to get into all those cracks and crevices. Some people might suggest doing a gloss varnish over this so that the paint doesn't stick on top, but what did I say? We're going for quick and dirty. And then you let them dry overnight. And with our mechs dry, the next step obviously is detailing. Now I really like how they look here. Very happy with that dirty look, but we got to do some edge highlighting. So the way you do that with speed paints is you take the speed paint and mix in like a white or an ivory color to make it much more opaque. I'm going to do that same process with every color on the model, Slapchop or acrylic. And then we're going to do really, really sharp corner highlights with pure white. Going for super color contrast. Check it out.
feeling in the air to live for. Oh my God, I'm feeling in the air to live for. Oh, I'm fire, I feel it everywhere. Nothing scares me anymore. Oh my God, I'm feeling in the air to live for. Oh my God, I'm feeling in the air to live for. Oh, I'm fire.
Aren't you guys looking spiffy? Alright, last thing to do is basing. We're gonna take cheap craft paint. I like cheap craft paint for basing because basing can get expensive and you gotta cover a large area. So we're just gonna do a burnt umber craft paint, cover the entire base. Now the problem with cheap craft paint is it takes forever to dry, especially because I always go a little thicker than I expect. But we're gonna do full coverage on these guys, and then I'm gonna do the first rimming of the bases just so I get a base of black down. We're probably gonna have to do this again later. Hopefully in focus on the camera. Then we're going to take a lighter brown, territorial beige, and then we're going to dry brush over that dark brown. The big thing is Battletech minis are gigantic, so I need to sell a tiny base that this isn't the same scale as a Warhammer model. So I need more layers of browns. So we're going to do a light dry brushing of mummy ropes, which is like a white towards brown color. And we just really want some more depth in this base. It's going to be like muddy, but I just need it to look small. After that, we grab the strong tone. We're going to do Army Painter strong tone over the entire base because Army Painter gives you the deepest contrast for dirt basing. It makes it look a little bit wet, and I'm very here for how that's going to look on this muddy wasteland. I'm not going for like blasted desert. I kind of want it to match the base of the stuff that comes in the game, like the board that it comes with, so it's got to be grassy and dirty. I put a little bit of that on the very bottoms of the shoes of the mechs to imply they've kicked up some mud and dirt, but I don't want to go too high because, you know, dirt shouldn't kick up 30 feet. Then I leave them to dry. Next step, we're going to do some grass flocking. Now, I've never done grass flocking on the channel, at least in this scale. I've done it in super small scale, so hopefully I can get this grass and moss a little bit more fine. In the future, I think I'm going to buy like a food processor to grind this stuff up. But basically the move is you just put down some really watered down PVA glue and you grind this little cheap moss that I got at Walmart for like $2 into really fine flocking. I kind of want it to look like grass and then bunched up areas that should look like in-scale shrubs. Like I don't want this to look like grass at human height because, again, these mechs are gigantic. I want this to look like bushes, essentially. A person would have to walk around the grass on the bottom. It's a tough scale to sell, and I might have to build some terrain to really make it look right. So now we're going to do the ceremonial final black base rimming, obviously out of focus, because why would it be in focus? Either way, after leaving the glue to dry and giving him another coat of matte varnish, I was left with this. And that's all from me. Let me know what you thought about my slap chopping of Battlemechs. Normally on a Battlemech, if you wanted it to be clean and look like the art in the game, typically, I'd probably tell you not to slap chop it. But I wanted to do something different, and I've never really done this method before except on really tiny models. So I wanted to see how it translated to a big, giant, dirty mechs. Now, I didn't show you how to paint the other 4 models in the box because I'm much less proud of them than I am with my 4 Capellans. The Awesome especially is probably my favorite model in the box, but you tell me, what's yours? Anyway, I'm Chris. I didn't say it at the beginning, but I like to paint things. Let me know if you want more Battletech in the future. I'm thinking of doing an episode where I like scratch build some hex terrain for the board so that you don't have to use the nice cardboard standees they give you. I don't know. We'll see how it goes. I haven't really planned that far ahead, and I typically don't. Regardless, have a great night. Take it easy.